welcome to another episode of the When Life Happens podcast. I'm your host, William Jackson, and I'm so excited because we have another opportunity to live, learn, and grow together. And today we are going to talk about some practical tools that I believe that is going to empower you to create the spaces where you need to succeed in life, where you normally may have given up prematurely. Today, we are going to talk about the photo finish. Now, I don't know where you are in the world, but unless you are under a rock, you have been made aware of all of the things that's going on at the Olympics. This Olympics has been filled with drama, with excitement, with storylines, with all kinds of things that are bringing attention from eyes all around the world. But the one thing that really stood out to me was the men's 100-meter final. Now, I am an avid track and field lover. I love the intentionality. I love the training processes that people train for years so that they can perform in seconds. Think about that. That people train 4 years for 10 seconds. How much intentionality does it take for you to be in a space where you are working consistently? I'm talking about you putting in the work, you in the gym, you are sacrificing all of your time, you are making sure that you're eating properly, you're taking care of your body consistently, you're training knowing that you won't have to perform for years that are to come. Do you understand the temptation that is ahead of you to procrastinate when you know that you have years? If I know that I have 4 years to be ready, I don't know if I could say that I have the discipline to start preparing in year 1. But when you realize how important 10 seconds are, you will take your training regimen, you'll take how you treat your body, you take what you eat, you'll become more intentional because you realize the importance of 10 seconds. So I'm an avid track and field lover. I love the shot put, I love the pole vault, I love the long jump, and I love the sprinters. 100 meters. It always draws the most attention, the most excitement, in my opinion. I remember when Usain Bolt was the one who was ahead of the pack and he was setting world records, and you could just see the energy and the pride that it brings to countries and all of these amazing events. But this year's event in Paris, the 100-meter men's final was won. If you blinked, you would miss it. In those 10 seconds, you had people from all over the world, and the favorite to win was Noah Lyles from the U.S. All of the hype, all of the excitement coming in, and people were just anticipating for him to run away with it. They were anticipating him to be in a space where he just dominated the entire field. But this race was a little different. Let's pause here for a second. And my question to you is, when you are in a space where you are favored to come out successful, when you're the one who has the pressure to make sure that you end out on top, that you cannot fail, that there's so much on you, and you have to be in a place where you are able to succeed because of the pressure that's on you. How do you handle that pressure? Because the truth of the matter is, we always talk about the pressures of lack and the pressures of stress, of not having. But what most people don't talk about is the pressures of success. Because you realize that on the level that you're on, even though it has its own frustrations and the things that you're experiencing, when you elevate a level, that pressure intensifies. And I think oftentimes that it's a blessing that people are not able to step into what they desire when they desire it, because the pressure, as you elevate, it intensifies and it causes you to have to be more intentional than you've ever been. So we see that Noah Lyles was the favorite, drew a lot of attention. Everybody was rooting and people were just expecting him to run away with the race. And then it came time for the race. And when everyone lined up, and while the anticipation was he was going to just dominate this race, when the start happened, it appeared that he was in some trouble. It was one of those things that he got out of the blocks, and I don't know if he had not so good of a start, but all of a sudden he found himself behind. And I mean, it looked like that the other racers, that the other athletes were just going to run away with it. And I could not imagine the stress or the thoughts or the emotions that he was traveling through when he got to the place when he realized, oh, this didn't start how I wanted it to start. This didn't start how I anticipated it. But then he was faced with a decision. And in that decision, I believe that most of us experience at some point of our lives. In that specific moment, when it doesn't start how you want it to, how you anticipated, how you trained and worked for. When you're in a space when all of the things that you have worked hard for, when you have trained for, when you have prayed for, when you have sacrificed for, when they don't start the way that you anticipated, you are then faced with a decision. And they ran the race 10 seconds. And at the finish line, it was one of the most iconic moments that we've seen in a long time in sports. The photo finish, it says that Noah Lyles ended up coming back at the very end and winning the race within 5,000ths of a second. Do you realize how close that margin for error is? And you don't even have a second to spare, that he won the race within 5,000ths of a second. And now when you come into it, at the onset, people thought that he lost. But then he waited, and you had to just pause for a second and wait for the official word to come down. And this moment, I think, was one of the most iconic moments of all of the Olympics. And today we're going to take some practical tools that we can extract from Noah Lyles' photo finished to apply to your life when things don't start the way you want them to, when you have the pressure to succeed and everything is riding on you, and when it appears that you're going to lose. So let's dive into this. We're going to talk about the photo finish, because we see when he lined up in the blocks, right? Everyone was so excited. He had this confidence. And most of us approach situations oftentimes very confidently, where we are ready. You've put the work in. You've made sure that you've done what you needed to do. You've prepared for this moment. And when you're prepared, it elevates your confidence level. See, some people oftentimes go into a moment and they're shaky. Why? Because they haven't put the work in. When I would see all of these amazing athletes who were supremely confident in high pressure moments, it's because they had put the work in enough to prepare for when the pressure rose. So he was confident. But then the race started and he didn't get out the way he anticipated. And what most people do in this specific space, when it doesn't start the way that you anticipated, the first thing that they do is they start to self-sabotage. When it doesn't start the way you want it to, when a relationship doesn't start the way you want it to, when a business doesn't start the way you want it to, when you're building something and it doesn't go according to plan, what most people do is they start self-sabotaging. They start talking bad about themselves. They start allowing all of the negative thoughts into their psyche that starts to shape their perspective about their direction. How many times have you been in a space where you were just in a moment and your mind took off, and then you started to self-sabotage with all of these thoughts of doubt, with all of these things of, well, could I have done more? Or is there something that I am doing wrong? Or now we're over-analyzing every single mistake. And I'll be honest, one of the things I have to work very hard on is my mind traveling off. My wife and I were having a conversation last night, and how quickly my perception can take off. You would think that my mind was a sprinter, got out the blocks every time, speeding. One thing my mind will not do is get out of the blocks slow. My mind will take off. You hear me? So we see that a lot of times, if it doesn't start according to plan, we will automatically start self-sabotaging. And we start to dwell in the areas of the what ifs. What if this happens? Or what if this doesn't go? What if I can't catch up? What if it doesn't rebound? What if I don't bounce back from this? And those what ifs start to cause us to spiral into these places of mental torment, where now we're so consumed with this negative energy that we allowed in because of our perspective of how we started, that now it starts to deteriorate our energy and our focus and our ability to keep pushing forward. So many times we self-sabotage, focused on what should I have done? What could I have done? Hear me. If you are in a space where you are consistently dwelling in the what ifs will prevent you from being able to be effective in the here and now. The what ifs will cause you to create an entirely alternate reality that you will then now invest your energy, your focus, and all of the things that are necessary for you to be effective in the space that you're supposed to be in. The what ifs are completely a distraction. And once you get in a place when you realize that you still got a race to run, that you still got a marriage to build, that you still got a business to build, you got to be able to shift your focus to get back in the race. Because so many people, they'll start out, and if it doesn't go according to plan, they'll just stop running. People get out of the blocks and it's not going the way it's supposed to do, and just will throw in the towel. Some people are even fake an injury. Have you ever been in that place where you've been outmanned, or you just knew you were going to lose? Let me tell you, one of the things we used to do when we were playing video games as younger children, if you knew you were going to lose, what most people would do is just cut the game off. Just unplug it. Just take the whole game out. Just reset, start over. So let's just do a redo. And unfortunately, in life, oftentimes you can't just start over. You can't just have a redo. You have to have something deep inside you. This is why your personal why is so important, because the reason why you got into the race in the first place will keep you committed to the what, which is the race. Your why is the thing that's going to drive you to keep pushing, to push past how you feel, to push past what you see, to push past what you think, in order to get into a place where you know, I have to get back into this race. You got to have something deep inside of you to say, it may not have started the way I needed it to start. It may not have began how I anticipated or expected, but we still got a race to run. We still have to get into a place where we're now able to shift our focus back to the fact that we're in this race. And just because it didn't start right does not mean that it can't end right. So most people start to self-sabotage if it doesn't start the right way. And then what happens is, because we didn't start off the right way, now we get into the space where we're in the comparison phase, because we can see all of the people ahead of us. You're comparing to all of the runners who have gone before you, who seem to have a head start. And now what do? We start enabling our excuses. Oh, well, see, I can't finish because they're already ahead of me. I can't get to the place where I'm supposed to be because I didn't have a fair shake at life. I was dealt a bad hand. I didn't get the same aspects or the same time to train. I didn't get the same intentionality. I didn't have a coach. I didn't have a father. I didn't have money. I didn't have all of the resources that are necessary for me to be successful. We start enabling our excuses. And every time we enable another excuse, we start to create a proverbial quicksand that provides us a space where now we begin sinking back into the place of defeat. We start sinking back into places where now we can't muster up all of the strength because we're so captive by our excuses that now we don't even have the ability to move forward. Because every situation that we're faced with provides us with an opportunity to make excuses or to make progress. Because most of the time, you're not going to have everything you need when you start. Most of the time, you're not going to be in a space where you have all of the resources, because if you have everything that you need, then you miss out on the opportunity to learn what you need to learn in order to sustain where you're going. One of the greatest things that can happen in life are moments of difficulty. One of the greatest things that can happen are moments that put you to the test. Why? Because in those moments, not only do you learn more about yourself, but you learn all of the nuances that are necessary for you not only to not repeat the mistake, but for you to get into the space now where your success is sustainable. Because I tell you all the time, the goal is not to just get over into a place of success. The goal is to get there and to stay there. And nothing prepares you more for sustaining success than the losses. Nothing prepares you more for sustaining success like the difficulties, like the failures, because you learn so much in a failure. You learn so much in a loss. And all of those lessons will then make you stronger and more suitable for where you're headed. So many people, we get into this place now where we're enabling our excuses. Oh, where they're ahead of me. Oh, you know what? I didn't start right. And even if we lose races, we start blaming it on, well, I didn't start right. Well, I didn't have what I needed. And all of these excuses now create this mindset that inhibits you or prohibits you from stepping into your full power. Because in order to learn from a loss, you have to be able to accept it, to take accountability, and to just embrace it. Most people won't embrace losses because we're enabling excuses. It failed. It didn't work. Here's the truth. That's okay. You tried it. You stepped out. You gave it a valiant effort. You did everything that you knew how. And guess what? You walk away stronger. You walk away wiser. You got to be in a space where you realize that everything that you're going through is a lesson. It's making you stronger. And when you shift your perspective about the things that you're going through, then you can start extracting the lessons instead of erasing the difficulties or erasing how you feel about the things that didn't work out. Your perspective is key, and your perspective will always be tainted if you are enabling excuses. Because you cannot have a clear perspective when it is riddled or when it is consumed with the why you couldn't, or what I didn't have, or why I was unable to succeed. People who have an innate ability to see a loss, to embrace it, to extract it, they come back 10 times better. And so many people repeat mistakes because instead of seeing what happened, seeing what didn't work, and extracting things that are necessary for you to be better next time, we enable the excuses. And now our perspective cannot be sharpened. Now we cannot take what's necessary in order to bounce back better. Because the excuses are preventing us from experiencing the full opportunity that a loss, that a misstep or a mistake provides us. What if you start looking at a mistake or something that didn't work right or a failure as an opportunity? What if you just shift your perspective slightly to see that the things that you are going through, the things that happened, the things that you lost, the things that didn't work out are opportunities for you to come back stronger and better and wiser, and to create spaces now where you can take that knowledge and pass it down to people who are coming behind you. That you can take the knowledge of your losses and give it to your children so they minimize theirs. What if every loss was an opportunity? So that's what happens is that most people, after they self-sabotage, then they'll start enabling their excuses. And their excuses are usually tied to a mindset or a heart posture of comparison. Look at what they have and look at what I don't. And I think if we get to a place where instead of comparing up and we start comparing down, it will create a space where we have more of an appreciation instead of this mindset of entitlement or this mindset of I didn't have, so I couldn't, or I deserved, or what I missed out on. When you start just looking at people who are less fortunate, when you know that there's abject poverty around the world where people are literally sleeping in dirt. I've seen videos where people's houses were literally in water. And children were sleeping in buckets and on furniture that's floating because the house didn't have a solid foundation, and the mother is making food with water up to her knees, and this is how they're living. When you start to really compare in a space where you know, even though it may not be how you needed it to be or desired it to be or wanted it to be for you to start out effectively, man, the fact that you got started is more than what most people can say. The fact that you tried it, the fact that you had the opportunity to try. It's a space now where you're able to see it through a different lens. But we can't see it that way if we're enabling our excuses. And we see here, Noah Lyles gets out the block. He's running and he's behind. And he had a moment he could have started self-sabotaging and beating himself up because he didn't start the race right. But he chose not to. He could have started comparing all of the people who were in front of him, but he realized that he had to run his race. He became so linear focused to realize that I have to run my race. I can't focus on everybody that's around me, even though it appears as though I'm going to lose this race. As long as there is space in front of me, as long as there's breath in my body, as long as we haven't hit the finish line, there's an opportunity. And man, if we ever got to a space to say, as long as we haven't hit the finish line, and that finish line is by the time you leave this earth, as long as there's breath in your body, guess what? It's an opportunity because I'm still running this race. He could have enabled his excuses. He could have started comparing, or he could have done what a lot of people do when they're behind. They decide defeat. What does that mean? They make a decision that the race is over. And they disqualify themselves because they decide that they're already defeated. So even though they may continue running, they won't run with the same passion, the same energy, the same effort because they have already determined that they were defeated. And then we make a defeated decision we'll go through the motions. Yeah, we'll keep going back. We'll do what we need to do. We'll become these proverbial zombies and we'll do what we need to do. But because we've already decided that we're defeated, we only start giving pieces of ourselves, and then it becomes lackluster effort. And then we're in a space now where we can't even provide the essence of who we are and bring our full authentic self to a situation. And whenever you are giving pieces of yourself to a situation, you are only going to experience fragmented success. So much of our successes probably have been fragmented because if you really go back down, how many things have you gave all of yourself to? I say all the time, give everything you got to everything you do. Why? Because when you give all of you, that is when you can at least live with the results. A wise man once said that fear is temporary, but regret is permanent. And how many of our experiences have been riddled with regret because we had the inability to give all of ourselves to a situation? If you can give everything you got, then guess what happens? You now come out on the other end able to live with the result. But if you know you lost a race because you didn't run hard enough, if you know you're in a space now where you couldn't experience all of the things that you needed to experience because you withheld pieces of you, if you know that the marriage failed because you only gave pieces of yourself, if you know the business failed because you didn't fully commit, then we have to live with that regret of saying, man, I could have given more. But when you decide that defeat is already predetermined, it takes all of the fight out of you. It takes all of the energy that's necessary for you to push past where you are to experience what you desire. How can we be in a space now where we're able to continue to push past and know that as long as I keep running, and I don't know what you're up against, I don't know what you're facing, but I'm here to tell you that as long as you have a breath in your body, just really quick, stop for a moment, humor me, and just take a breath. The mere fact that you were able to do that means that you still have an opportunity. It means what? That it's not over. If you just keep running, if you keep pushing, if you keep getting up every day and decide, I'm going to give everything I have today, even though it doesn't look like that it's going to pan out the way that I desire it to, if you can get back in a space now where you're saying, man, let me just keep pushing. Let me try again. Because if you can try again in this space time and where you are, if you can find that energy, guess what? You can muster up everything you need to finish strong. How many times have we been in spaces where we were right there, right at the edge, about to step into everything that we were created to be and to do, and threw in the towel? Got so close. And we decided that we were already defeated. Or we start enabling our excuses, or we start self-sabotaging. Because we see in his mind, even though he knew it didn't start how he wanted it, even though he knew that from his perspective, he was behind, he did not determine that he was already defeated. And he kept running as hard as he can. Because he knew that it doesn't matter how you start. What matters is how you finished. And he won within 0.005 of a second. That's quicker than a blink. Like, just think about that. 0.005 of a second. That if he just took one moment to self-sabotage, if he took one moment to enable an excuse, if he took one moment to start oscillating back and forth between defeat and success and his desire and his ability to give everything that he had, there was no chance that he would have won that race. You have to get to a space where there is no room for you to enable your excuses, that you have no capacity for self-sabotage, that you have developed your mindset and your heart and your focus and everything that you have so much so that you are impenetrable by all of the external factors that you may see or face, that you know that it doesn't matter how you start, that if you keep running with everything you got, you will win because you're the favorite. You will win because you were created to win. You will win because it doesn't matter who has gone before you. What matters is that you have control over how this race ends. You have control over how you get through the finish line. There's a saying that runners use to say, it's run through the tape. You can't stop. You can't pause. You can't get into a space where you're trying to pull up at the last moment, because I've seen that in races where people have started out strong and you had such a lead that you started to slack off. And then what happens is that someone who's running hard, who's coming up, who's going to run through the tape, who's going to give everything that they have, they catch you at the end because we thought that the win was in the bag. You got to keep running with everything you have until you cross that finish line. And then after that finish line, what happens? You got to get up and get ready for the next one. You have everything inside of you to create spaces where, regardless as to how you have started, you can finish this race strong. Taking these lessons to know that even there are spaces where you may have self-sabotage, that you can make the change today. Even if you've been in this place where you've enabled your excuses, guess what? You can make a change today. And if you have determined that you already defeated, if you've decided defeat already, you can make an intentional change today to say, I'm going to get back in the race. Listen, I hope you got something out of this episode. It's my honor to always share with you. And if by chance you leave away from this episode and forget everything that I've ever said, I need you to understand that you have everything inside of you already that you need to overcome and succeed when life happens.